Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where in the world you are and what time zone you're coming to us from. Welcome back, or perhaps welcome for the first time to our fourth week of the short course on ransomware, presented by Jeremy Costa, one of our fabulous mentors at IT Masters and Charles Sturt University. Ransomware techniques. Topic number 4, privilege escalation and intruder detection. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that we are recording from the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation and the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay our respects to their elders and ancestors, acknowledge their ongoing connection to land, waters, and culture, and their unceded sovereignty and custodianship over these lands. So thank you very much for everyone's attendance today. I will mention just again for anyone who's come into the webinar in the last couple of minutes, apologies in advance if there is any lag or confusion in the facilitation or the logistics and back end of this webinar, as both Kit and I do have COVID at the moment, and we are both definitely feeling the COVID brain fog as a main symptom of that. So sorry in advance if we are a little bit confused. It's not you, it's us. We're confused by things at the moment. So a little bit of housekeeping as usual. Recordings of this webinar, once it has been recorded and uploaded, as well as all previous webinars for this session, this short course, can be found at learn.itmasters.edu.au, along with all of the other materials for this short course and the forums, which hopefully people have been enthusiastically participating in. Kit's just dropped the link in the chat function. Speaking of the chat function, that is where we would love to see your contributions to the discussion in general. That's where you can put input that you would like to contribute for just general discussion with your course mates and things that you would like to just sort of bring up. It's great to have feedback and insights from people. I know that there are a lot of people with a lot of different kinds of levels of experience in the chat. So it's great to know what people think about what is being said in the webinar. If you've got questions about the webinar material specifically that are for Jeremy, please put those in the Q&A section. The Q&A section, we'll do our best to answer as many of those questions as possible. And if your question is not answered due to time reasons, feel free to go and put that in one of the forums at learn.itmasters.edu.au. And we'll do our best to cover those. Just really quickly as well, please fill out the survey about your experience with this webinar, which is also available at learn.itmasters.edu.au. I believe you may also have received an email with a link to that. If not, my apologies, Kit. Kit has also just very helpfully popped a link to that short course experience survey in the chat. It's really helpful for us to know what you've enjoyed and what you would like to get out of these short courses if you fill those surveys out. So I would really appreciate it. Thank you. And before we start as well, one last thing is, I know many of you are absolutely champing at the bit to get onto the exam. The exam will be up by about noon tomorrow, about midday tomorrow, Australian Eastern Daylight Time. But there's no stress about the timing of the exam. There's no deadline for it. The exam takes 1 hour, you get one attempt. Certificates for completing the exam will be available about a week after you completed the exam, and Jeremy will be taking us through a bit more information about the exam towards the end of the webinar as well. So please hold questions specifically about the exam until then. And that just about completes my segment of the introduction. So thank you very much for listening to me waffle on very slightly. And with no further ado, thank you again, to Kit, wonderful Kit, who is soldiering on through COVID to do the logistics back end, the tech side of things in this. And I'm going to hand you over to Jeremy Costa, your wonderful presenter. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks very much, Jack and Kit. Been enormously helpful in these 4 weeks short course. Certainly with all of the attendees, it's great to be able to have people to answer questions, introduce, and so I can focus on the material. So that's been great. So this week, we talked about and I'll just jump to the incident response section. We talked about the intruder detection and what logs we need in our SIEM, and to understand the visibility of our environment. The week before, we heard about how an attacker will get into the environment from an initial intrusion point, and then the first week we talked all about how they get those initial steps in there. So we've been progressing through how we respond and protect ourselves as the a ransomware event or a ransomware incident progresses, and how we can stop it early on. And I want to, and I'm going to say it about 5 times in this live session, but the old adage that that prevention is better than cure is so true for ransomware. We don't want to be in the position where we are having to recover from significant damage to our environment. So that's the key, and that's really the reason why I was keen to do a course on this topic, is because ransomware it involves so many aspects of just normal attacking and hacking of a network, but it has dire consequences, and it really has become the scourge of the IT industry. And I want to give as many people the opportunity and the at least the basics, and obviously we can't go into too much depth because it's just 4 hours really of course, but I want to give people the opportunity to defend themselves as much as possible, and obviously point you in the direction of ways in which you can further your knowledge as well. And obviously, because it's focused on ransomware, it also focuses on incident response. It focuses on, there's things to do with cybersecurity management. It also focuses on pen testing. There are elements of all of that are stitched together with ransomware and overlapping, but good security practices are important, and taking a risk-based approach. But one of the main things we need to be aware of when an incident occurs on our environment is to be able to respond to it in a meaningful and measured way, right? So in a way that that is consistent and considered, so that it's not just haphazard. We do the things we need to do first. We do the critical stuff at the outset, but then also we learn from the incident. There is really no excuse, or not much excuse, for an organization that suffers a near miss or suffers an incident that isn't too bad, but doesn't go back and learn and stop that from happening again. If they've been able to get in one way, you really need to analyze it and figure out how to stop them. So with incident response, there could be a particular field about ransomware incident response. So when we come in and someone gets into the environment, we identify it. How do we actually contain it? How do we eradicate the artifacts of that, and the accounts and the software that comes with ransomware? Then how do we recover? How do we get back to where we are? And recovery, I only give it a couple of slides in this talk, but recovery after significant ransomware can take weeks and sometimes months. So so one thing I want to suggest is to go have a look at Jeremy Kirk's ransomware files. There's some really great interviews there, some discussion. There's some really good stuff about the Maersk ransomware attacks, some of that was the NotPetya stuff that we talked about in the first week, but there's really good information in there. It gives you a bit of the human element of it, but also some of the technical kind of intrusion details as well, but also how they recovered as an organization. And even sometimes, and we've got to think about this, about the human element of ransomware, because there is a human element. When we get a ransomware attack, or we get some sort of intrusion, you basically you're on the hook until you're able to get the environment back to where it should be, and that can be devastating for teams and individuals. and particularly people in cybersecurity teams. So we have to remember that as well. So for ransomware incident response, I've got the 4 items here in red and the one up the top, one down the bottom. This is the standard PICERL, the PICERL, the preparation, identification, containment, eradication, recovery, lessons learned. It was, I think, mostly in the SANS incident response. So shout out to SANS for their good work here, but it's been a bit of a mainstay in the CISM and in the CISSP. They expand on this a little bit, but essentially this is the structure that we follow, and it works well for ransomware. Sometimes it doesn't work so well with an incident like maybe an API incident, where it's not so much an intrusion, but actually just there's not much eradication recovery to be done, just a closing of a vulnerability. So there's some difference, some applicability to this, but that wasn't an actual kind of ransomware deployment as much as a data exfiltration and extortion outside of that. So that's the important thing to remember, is that we've got these 2 items, one at the top, preparation that can happen at any time and should be happening well before you get an incident occurring, and then there's lessons learned that needs to go through at the end, like doing an analysis of the incident, and we'll cover that as well. But the 4 in the middle are the ones we need to make sure we are very well prepared for: the identification, containment, eradication, and recovery. So for the preparation, we basically want an incident response plan, okay? And that's something every organization should have, where we have an idea of what we want to do when an incident occurs in our organization, and we will have some playlists and some kind of different incidents that this will be relevant to. But for a ransomware, it is pretty mainstream that the plan should be covering all of these different phases. So we have this idea in an incident response plan where we have a declaration of an incident. When do we actually decide this is an incident, or we are investigating an incident? And there is then a rating. Now, one of the big pieces that we cover in the incident response course, and even in the master's level course as well, is that the rating of an incident should be high before it's rated, if that makes sense. So you put all of your resources into an incident until you know the rating, because if you don't know the rating, you don't know the severity of it. So if it's been declared but not rated, it should receive it's an urgent priority until you understand the rating. And the rating can change as the incident is handled. So you can get to stages where you've gone past containment, you're into eradication, and the actual risk of the incident is reducing a bit. And then we have these phased checklists, right? So every time you go from one phase to the next, so you go from identification to containment to eradication, you should have a checklist there to say, well, when we get to identification, have we figured out what assets are involved, what is the scope, what is the type of incident, are we sure it's malicious, what's the intent? So you've got these checklists, and then you go into eradication, right? So have we isolated machines, have we reset passwords? We'll talk about some of this going forward. And so we've got this checklist that we put together before there's an incident, so we've got something to refer to. Then we have communication, contacts, and triggers. This is vital. Typically in an incident, you'll have one person doing the technical coordination of incident response, but you'll also have someone doing the communications that is able to provide updates to the executive team, or even to the public relations, or even to HR if it's impacting internally as well. So there is this idea that we have these communication contacts, and depending on how the incident goes, we also have these triggers, so that if it gets to a certain severity, then it gets notified to the CIO. You don't want to, or to the line of management, or to whoever the lead incident response person is reporting to. You don't want to report everything that is investigated. Obviously, you might do it at a different time, at a one-on-one catch-up, but you want to, if it escalates quickly, then you don't want these surprises getting to your line of management before you've told them about it. So it's important to have these communication pathways and triggers thought out well before you get to an incident. Then we have an incident report template, and I'll talk. I've got a structure in one of these slides that will talk how to put that through. I will say the incident report is sometimes the most important part of an incident, because it enables the incident or the information security team to be able to totally analyze the incident. And I say that you wouldn't have analyzed the incident properly until you write the incident report. The amount of times I've written an incident report and realized that there was more things to investigate as I was writing the report is numerous, okay? So you want to put the incident report together until you start writing about the incident and structuring some analysis around it. You don't fully know the incident. So it's important to get that report, and it's important to start it quickly. So having it not long after you've contained and recovered. Then practice the plan periodically. That could mean getting people into a room and just saying, hey, this has happened and what steps do we go through, so you all know where it is. And the bigger the team, the more importance there is for a plan. If you've only got a team of 2 and you're used to handling incidents, then maybe you just have it on the shelf and you pull it out, just make checklists and make sure you've done everything you said you would. If you've got a plan of, if you've got a team of 40, then you want everyone to be able to go understand the incident response plan, know where it is and know what the steps are, and to pull it out as well. So that it's a communication tool as much as anything. And then as you're doing that, as you go through incidents and as you go through, running the plan for real, or you run the plan in a simulation, you want to check it for correctness. So things that kind of go stale in a plan are communication contacts. There is also regulation that gets a bit stale. We have quite a few notification requirements now in different industries, certainly for privacy, that need to go into the plan as well. Because if there's any indication that data, personal data, has been exposed, then you'll need to work out if there's a notification required, and the OAIC needs to know as well. Then prepare for the big red button. And I've had previous lines of management talk about this, but the big red button is kind of like, what happens if there's a lot of intrusion through, say, Office 365? We start getting loads of compromised accounts and internal phishing, and we don't know how it's propagating. You should be able to, with your Azure admin or your Office 365 admin, be able to block all access to Office 365. And that may be a legitimate thing to do if that is the only thing you can do to contain it before actually stopping it. So that you, it seems quite drastic, but imagine this is happening in 2 o'clock in the morning, and there is something kind of going out of control on your Office 365, going from mailbox to mailbox. You want to know who and how you would actually block external access to Office 365 and where it's coming from. So another one might be the VPN I've talked about before. The VPNs, maybe an account there is compromised. You don't know if they've got any more. So for the time being, while you recover, you hit the big red button and you chop off the VPN. No one can get in there. Or maybe with Active Directory, there is something propagating through the network. You might turn off a DC, or you might isolate a VLAN, hit that big red button so nothing can touch those domain controllers. That sort of thing is what we're talking about with a drastic kind of chopping off of traffic or network or a service, so that whatever is infecting the environment doesn't propagate. And this is true for network, desktop, application, server admins. If you don't know who in your organization can actually turn off a switch port, it's important to figure out who that is. Who is the network guy who can go into a switch, understand which MAC address is on it based on the IP address or the DHCP logs, and be able to turn off that port so that isolates that computer right where it is. Or the person who can disable and kick off someone from the wireless network. So there's a compromised machine on the wireless network, it's trying to infect others, who can actually kick that, delete that session and stop the traffic. So getting those sorts of resources in line, and typically information security team works very closely with networks, infrastructure, desktop, service desk, all that kind of, all those people, but make sure that those people are aware of the incident response plan, and they might be drawn upon in the incident response itself. Okay, so that's all the preparation we need to do, because you don't want to, in the heat of the moment, go, oh, I don't know, who do I contact about this? Who do I contact? It's going to waste time, and you sometimes may have, you know, hours or even minutes to make the decision to protect your environment. And no one wants to be in this position, but it's good to be prepared. If you do, it allows you to keep cool and calm, so that there's no panic or bad decisions made. Now, there's a really big thing now for third-party assistance, and large organizations will reach out to a bunch of third parties to run services for them. When you're a small organization, it's important to have these kind of connections thought about as well. If the worst comes to the worst, who are you actually going to talk to be able to grab assistance? If your Active Directory gets turned upside down, you have backups, but actually restoring the Active Directory needs to go to a new server. Do you need to contact Microsoft, you know, Microsoft support to help put piece the Active Directory together based on just the database of the Active Directory? You know, the LDAP database, maybe they can help you get all that stuff together, but having those support channels and third-party channels worked out before you get to the incident is really important. I noticed the government has been very, I would say, involved, and it's amazing that these things are going on while we're doing a ransomware techniques course. But they've been very involved not only in the Optus breach, but also in the Medicare breach, and they've been pulling in agencies and working on and supporting the affected organizations and supporting the affected individuals, trying to understand what the impact is on individual citizens out there, and how they can be protected. So pulling in the ACSC is really important. We are asked to report cybercrime, and to be able to pull together and draw on law enforcement, particularly if it gets criminal. Now, in the case of ransomware, if we're being ransomed, it is a criminal act. They've broken into our organization. That is that's a criminal activity, and they are ransoming us. The ACSC wants to know about it. The ACSC wants to help, and they will be able to pull in strings to assist and help. It's not always kind of rainbows and unicorns, though, with law enforcement. So it does come with but my experience is that over the last couple of years, law enforcement and government agencies have become a lot more helpful and a lot more collaborative in their approach. So yeah, I wouldn't shy away, and reporting earlier is better than waiting and reporting late. There's also companies that have incident response retainers. So this means you pay them a certain amount of money to have resources at hand, and they're almost like a bit of insurance, so that if you have the small team and you have an incident, then you can bring them into your environment and do incident response. You know, and there's kind of ranging ways that this works. Some are part of endpoint detection and response companies. So they'll bring in their tooling and try and help you that way as well. So endpoint detection and response is a good way to do that as well with those retainers. There's also forensic specialists. So if it goes to criminal trial, you will need someone to be able to piece together the evidence of what has actually happened in your environment. Not many organizations are big enough to have their own forensic specialists. So typically we pull in a third party for that, because you don't need them too often. Even at a kind of smaller organization, at enterprise level, there is a need for that kind of skill set in some cases. But even then, getting external people in to put together, you know, that specialist skill of putting together criminal evidence is, or evidence that can be submitted in court is important. Now, engaging professional public relations is also very important if it is an enterprise organization. In some ways, I think when one of these attacks happens, it's something bad. Everyone is a bit damaged by it, scared by it. There's not too much an organization can do to come out looking good from an incident. You'll see in the recent incidents and the recent notifications, it's kind of like a bit of a train wreck just happening over time. Some people are supportive, some people are very critical. You're never going to make everyone happy because something bad has happened. It's rare that you have an incident that is so public that you come out of that with a positive shine when it is actually damaging the public. So professional public relations can help kind of navigate those landmines, choosing the right words to say, also being honest and truthful. I think that's sometimes almost always the best policy is to be early with information and honest with information, and I think people respect that. It's when there's minimal information coming out that it makes it people get a bit upset about that. Insurance is important. So if you have cyber insurance, you'll need to let them know pretty quickly. They'll often have their own people that they want to bring in for forensics, for incident response, to make sure things are working properly, to make sure that their policy is holding up and that when the policy has not been violated and they don't have a way out of the insurance. But insurance is an important factor as well. There's threat intelligence as well. So you might want to get someone in who understands the actual actor, the ransomware actor, and to do some recovery services. And there's also industry groups. So I mentioned ransomware files. I'll mention Risky Biz by Patrick Gray, his podcast. I've been listening to that for my entire career, and I would have to say that it's a great source of information around attacks across the globe, but obviously he's based in Australia. Terrific podcast, Risky Biz. So that's a good one to keep on top of all of these kind of developments at a news level. And then obviously lawyers. So you would have possibly in an enterprise, you'll have internal lawyers. You might want to bring in external lawyers, because you don't know about how you negotiate with these ransomware actors, and if we'll talk about paying the ransom a little bit as well, but you might have legal advice there about what you can say, how you can what your rights are, how you might be damaged later from legal action, and how you can protect yourself from that, but also doing the right thing by your customers and by the organization. So that's an important one as well. And there's a picture here of FAST. You'll see this. These are ransomware negotiation services. So there are organizations that specialize in being that conduit between ransomware actors and the companies. And sometimes the ransomware actors even recommend ransomware negotiation services as the negotiator between the two, which is a bit crazy, it seems, between the two parties, to try and bring down the ransomware payment, but also to stop data being exposed. I'm not sure how I feel about that. It seems a bit funny if they're being recommended, but I think sometimes the ransomware negotiation service can be helpful, even just to hear what they have to say. And then, so we'll jump into the incident response phases. We'll talk about identification. So find it early. And I'll say it again, prevention is better than cure. So finding it early and getting rid of them is the key. So we talked about all of those logs that we have. And I'm going to talk about some of these particular alerts that you might want to set up. And you could embed them in playbooks for your own SIEM or in your own incident response. But essentially, you want to start with all of those log sources I talked about last week and getting them into SIEM dashboards. Now, SIEM dashboards, security incident or information event management, or incident event monitoring, whatever you want to call it. These are the log aggregators and analysis platforms that allow us to pull the logs in together. Takes a lot of work because all the different vendors choose different ways to tell you things. You know, we don't have a standard for that in the, well, we probably do have a standard for that in the organization, but not a lot of vendors follow it. So it's a kind of getting those dashboards, are visualizations of what's normal, right? So you want to be able to see where, you know, you remember global maps of where people are connecting into for Office 365 or from your VPN, and then you want to understand what looks normal for your organization. So if you see something different from a different location in the world, or a threshold goes up through the roof, you have you know, 1,000 events in a second on this particular feed rather than 5 events per second. Why is that? You need to understand what those logs say. So the dashboards give you that kind of normalization view, and then you build out your alerts from there. So the reason why we have this is, one, to identify events as they occur, but also to investigate once they have, to make sure you've eradicated it completely and you understand the scope of the incident. What are we looking for? We're looking for password spraying on external services and AD. So Office 365 is the classic. If you look at your Office 365 logs, you will see dozens of failed authentication attempts. It's just the way it is. You want to be able to identify which one of those are a problem, if there's success after many failures, that sort of thing. SMB RDP scanning. So if someone gets onto your network, the first thing they're going to look for is other Windows boxes to infect. And you'll see how that might be the case with the exam challenge. The CTF is that you've got a Kali Linux box, and you are looking for the SMB service on the Windows box, right? To authenticate to take control of. You've got credentials there. You want to make use of them. Someone scanning for SMB services across your network or RDP services, they shouldn't really be doing that. There are some things like, you know, some CMDB systems that go and find things on your network. You'll have to just whitelist those ones. But if it comes from a normal workstation, that's something to investigate. Active Directory mapping. So someone drawing down all the LDAP is a good one to know about. So and that can be tricky to do. But seeing that on the Active Directory is a good one. Change in domain admin group. I love this one. So there's some good events in the event viewer. When you're getting those logs into your SIEM, you say, well, if the domain admin group has someone added to it, let me know. And that's a terrific alert. And then you can just go and talk to the sysadmin team and say, hey, did you mean? And by this stage, it's probably a bit late. You want to catch them before this, but it's a good indicator. And it also makes sure that your sysadmin team know that you're watching them. Snigger, snigger. Then there's service account logging in, something that no one should really use as an interactive login. If that is logging in interactively, like through RDP or through some other form in an area it shouldn't be, you should be having that identified, like someone logging in on a workstation with that. Login attempts from one account to many computers. And this is similar to the SMB scanning, but if you see some workstation hitting, you know, more than 20 computers with the same username, who would be doing that? And the answer is usually just desktop support or server support or something like that when they're doing maintenance. But you can find out who that is, just check with them. Is that you? It's not you, then let's investigate. Then login attempts to many accounts from one computer or from a couple of computers. So many accounts means that they're looking for weak accounts, right? So they're looking for weak passwords. They're doing a password spray and trying not to lock things out. If you have a look at, we talked about in the first one, Sharp Spray is a good password tool, password auditing tool. That's what we used to call it, but password spraying tool for Active Directory. And you'll see that with many accounts from one computer. Use of Tor, anonymous VPN, and now residential SOCs services. So this is a bit of a moving target as well. Tor is fairly easy to see because there's good lists of Tor exit nodes, so they're public. Anonymous VPNs are a bit harder, but there are services that will tell you about that. So like there's a good one called Spur. There is also IP Info. The MaxMind is a good one, but sometimes you have to pay for those things. You should be getting the free geo stuff into your SIEM anyway, but If you can pay for one of these services for this information, it's good. The residential SOCs is really diabolical. These are SOCs proxies, and I think I've mentioned this before, but SOCs proxies that are sitting on residential devices that are used to relay information, and they sell them as a service, quite expensive, but some of the ransomware gangs use that to look like they're coming from, say, a TPG or an Optus or a Telstra service, which is typically trusted as a residential service and not as a service. So have a look at those as well. Large volume of data exiting the environment. This is not always that easy. You kind of need net flow data. And also this happens a lot with our cloud environments that are popular these days. You think about how much information is shared between Office 365 and clients all the time. They might be uploading big files and doing different things. You'll need to map this out. It's a little bit harder to do, but large volume of data exiting your environment to a suspicious IP address or an IP address that you don't know about or isn't kind of affiliated with one of your major services probably needs a little bit of investigation. One of the big ones is a trained help desk staff to pass tickets to InfoSec. So if they get somebody reporting an issue, it's hacked or compromised, it's in the title or make sure they send it off. I've had situations where someone will report some sort of suspicious activity and it sits in a ticket queue unassigned for quite some time. We need to get that going. Incident response containment, right? So we want to, this is kind of the first responder situation. We've identified the incident, but now we need to contain it. We need to stop the flow of blood. We need to apply the bandages. We've got these critical first steps. We want to understand the initial infection vector. Is it coming through the VPN? Is it coming through a malicious document? Is it coming through from an infected computer that's been brought in? Is it through Office 365, or is there some other way that they've managed to get a beachhead in your environment? You've got to understand that initial intrusion vector, initial infection vector, identify the accounts that are being used in that vector. So the accounts and computers, disable those accounts, isolate those computers, block the network traffic from those computers were emitting while they were infected. So you might be blocking to some VPNs or something like that. Where are they actually operating from? Turn off cloud drive access if that's something that's on these systems, or the accounts are accessing cloud drives. Maybe stopping that access immediately is good, and then making VM snapshots of servers might be a good thing to do as well. And all this time, as we're doing containment, we want to actually preserve some information as well so that's a good thing to do, is to get logs and to make sure you've got comprehensive information for the report at the end. Now, work out how ransomware is spreading. Some ransomware gets spread through SCCM. That's diabolical, but there has been talks of that where they got into the SCCM and they deployed their ransomware using the internal tools. Then there's also domain admin, and some of this ransomware just runs its own PowerShell and propagates across the network. So how is it propagating, and how do you stop it from propagating? And what credentials are it propagating with? Possibly turn off external services like that bidreg button. Is it coming through Citrix, RDP, VPN? What's happening? Is it an AD compromise? And if it is, we talked about the Kerberos ticket granting service, ticket service password. So making sure resetting that, maybe moving off NTLM straight away. This is a good break fix time to do it, and implement SMB signing possibly. So start implementing some of those more secure methods of authenticating in Active Directory. And it's probably time for a couple of questions. Jack.
I think we can manage that. Definitely.
If there are some.
There are a few. So I'll start with a couple that are more topical, relating to the recent, those of you who are in Australia are probably familiar with even more recent ransomware attacks in the last few weeks. And some of you have probably heard about them that we've discussed during the short course. Min has said, unfortunately, I was compromised by the Optus hack recently, including mobile number, email address, and Medicare card and adult proof card. Min, I'm so sorry to hear this. can they just use my mobile number and email address to access my bank account? And what do you think of the new level 2 driver license? Is it harder to hack? For context, for everyone that's not familiar, one of the states in Australia has is in the process of introducing a new 2-factor authenticated, basically, a driver license where there's essentially multiple levels of authentication necessary to alter or access it.
Yeah, is that the card number on the driver's
Yes,
license as well as the license number? Yeah,
that's right.
So that is in the news. New South Wales has just been implementing that as well as the Optus breach was occurring. So we do have that facility on most of our licenses. There is a few other things that compound, I think, the issue, and I think mostly this information from Optus is going to be used to launch attacks or identify good targets for possibly further kind of phishing or getting further information or scamming, trying to get you to pay something. So the banks are being pretty good at requiring identification for changing password or recovering an account. So we should be contacting our bank of choice to work out what authentication measures there are there, and if there's further multi-factor authentication that you can put on your bank account to make sure that that's secure as well. So if you have a concern about that, I think contacting your institution. The other one that's important is your telco, right? So even if you're on another telco than Optus, then they may use some of those authenticating factors as well to allow you to access your account, and contacting them and making sure that you have the right authentication and verification methods on that account as well is important. So so it's just a matter of being aware of scams and making sure that you're being skeptical of those phone calls that ask you for things, but also making sure that you reach out to your institutions where you've got a service, and making sure that that is secure as well. But I also was in the Optus hack as well, so we'll see what happens with that.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Okay. So, is it? Sorry, that's the answer. Is there a couple of questions?
So we've got. I've got a couple that I'm going to tie together just for time reasons.
Yeah.
The first part of that is going to be Natalie asking, do you think that Medibank have done the right thing with their current breach? And then Al has asked, is there an industry best practice response plan that should be followed, or do organizations always just come up with their own? So I suppose, is there best practice? What's the kind of likelihood of organizations coming up with their own? And are you able to relate that to the recent Medicare breach?
Yeah. So on the incident response plans, I think there is kind of industry standards. The SANS one that I talked about out of the incident response GIAC certification is the framework that many people align to. You'll see things in NIST as well, and the Australian government will provide some things in the ISM as well. So there's plenty of material out there. The main point, though, is to start something and to make sure that process is clear, and then to be able to refine it as you go. So because every the nuts and bolts of incident response will be different from organization to organization. You're running different technologies, you have different assets. Largely the frameworks will be the same, but you need to start with the framework and refine it so that you have the best chance possible to limit damage to your organization. In terms of Medicare and what they've done, I think that I find it difficult to be critical of organizations that go through a ransomware attack. There are, things that occur in an organization that no one person is completely across, right? So they are very complex. It is likely to happen now and then, and hopefully not very often. I think they've been relatively good with their notification on the most part. I'm always kind of hedging my words here, because I am one of those people that might be in that situation one day, and I hope I do the right thing, but I don't want to throw any shade their way, because I know how difficult it is in an incident response process to get everything right. I will say that, again, that prevention is better than cure. It's important to have the visibility to make sure that you get them if they do get into your environment, you get to them quickly and get them out. I think overall Medicare have done a good job. Medibank. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. That's actually knocked off 3 questions in one. Someone was asking about the interchangeability of SANS and NIST and things. So thank you for addressing that as well. We've got another question from Chris, who's asked, looking at these indications of compromise, there's a lot of crossover between cloud and on-premises resources and systems. How do we get visibility of both? And why is on-prem the poor cousin, quote unquote, with many of these modern protections not available in a legacy AD context?
Because they're not strategic, plainly, I think, because for the companies that provide those on-premise solutions, they all want to go to the cloud. That's, you know, and that's where the industry is going. So I think in the future, well, I hope in the future that less and less people will do on-premise AD, because AD is a disaster in the way it's, you know, from what we've discussed. The cloud, again, yes, on-premise is poor cousin, but the cloud is feature rich because it's new and because it is built mostly taking into account the visibility that organizations want. With on-premise environments, different equipment, we're stitching it together and we're coming up with our own solutions really to make it mean something to the organization. In the cloud, you know, there's a lot more JSON, there's a lot more kind of interoperability between components and services. You know, APIs are much more easy to stitch together to get the information you want. So that's generally why you know, we are still, like, on-premise is lagging, but cloud has got good capability. But remember, there's also risks in cloud. It's not all, again, roses. There is, you still need that visibility. You still need to understand what's not correct, you know, what's not normal and what is an attack in the cloud environment. Sometimes that's not very clear either. And you've got to have the right products and right setup there. You can, you know, AWS is very secure on their side, but you can set up an AWS server that will get hacked in minutes. So there's still responsibility for organizations to make sure that they do their part to secure their cloud environments, the parts that they are responsible for configuring and monitoring. So it's still very important.
Right, thank you.
Cool.
And we've got
All right.
another one more question now, or would you like to move on?
Can we move on?
Absolutely.
And I'll take questions at the end. Yeah,
not a problem.
Cool. All right, so incident response, eradication. So I like this person here spraying the bugs on the trees, getting rid of those artifacts and symptoms and also the programs and accounts that are hanging around your network when you know, someone breaks into it is really important. You don't want any of that sort of stuff sticking around. And sometimes you can do you know, bring in an EDR, so to do incident response that way. You might be using your existing EDR, you find the artifact, then you use that to eradicate and respond or contain as well. So EDR can be used to contain and isolate machines as well. But then we want to identify the attack tools that the attacker used and make sure that those hosts are clean and the attack tools are removed. Remediate that infection vector that we initially found out, and those key intrusion activities. So sometimes you want to be able to get logs out of a system that wasn't sending logs previously. So, you know, maybe you've got a web server that was attacked and was the intrusion event. Something to do is to quickly put a logging agent on it, like Filebeat or something like that, to get the logs off that web server back to your SIEM so you can monitor it there without having to go ask every time for the next set of logs. So stream those logs into from the intrusion systems into your SIEM, configure event alerts for the events that you've seen. So what I mean here is that you may have a particular user that was used in an attack, and so configure alerts to watch for failed attempts of login for that user account. You may have a particular IP address that was used in the attack. So if they crazily come back and use that IP address again, you want to know about it. So think about what's been, they might have used a particular tool that you don't use in your environment. Configure an alert to alert you about a particular tool. If, something like PS exec is used in your environment and you're not an organization that uses that tool regularly, then maybe you want to know about that. It's a key tool to move around in an organization. Put together 24/7 scheduled monitoring. I've done this in the past where we've had an intrusion. We don't know when they're going to come back. We're not sure. We can't turn the services off for a particular reason. We want to make sure they don't try again with a different credential. We know how they're getting in. So sometimes you need, you may not have a 24/7 team, but maybe you can do shifts for a couple of nights to extend it to make sure that you get good coverage. You follow up those alerts and you refine them. Okay, you don't want to be flooded with alerts like we're putting in these alerts and for monitoring, but you want to refine those alerts. You want to speak to all initiators of an alert event, right? So as part of the eradication, if you see this spreading again, you want to, see a user being jumping onto a box they're not supposed to, maybe you want to talk to them and say, why did you jump onto that box? Why did you attempt to do that? So watching these things and talking to people and verifying events is really important in the eradication phase. Might have to be in place for weeks, possibly months with these, not the 24/7, but certainly the alerts. And sometimes it's good to implement a change freeze. Someone very helpful said to me recently that, when you have lots of change in the environment, it gets very noisy. And sometimes that trips up security alerts. And if you're going through an incident, maybe keeping the change level to a minimum allows you to have that kind of network piece so that you can really understand what's happening. Yeah. If anything does happen again. All right, recovery. So recovery is a massive topic, and you could spend to figure out how to recover all applications and infrastructure in a way that is meaningful for all organizations is relatively impossible. So we'll go through the principles. You basically want to be able to restore from backup, snapshots. You want to be able to identify encrypted and damaged systems, and you want to be able to find an unharmed DC. There's a good story in the ransomware files about, I think it was in the Maersk, where all of their domain controllers were compromised, except for the domain controller in Nigeria, because they were having a network outage down there. So they managed to get the Active Directory database from their server. So that was just fortuitous, but if you find an unharmed DC, image that thing and make sure you've got it backed up. Rebuild workstations. So, the systems that are, if you think about the Maersk and the Merck, the pharmaceutical company had a similar thing where all of the computers just got totally ransomed by NotPetya, totally unrecoverable. They've got to be rebuilt, cleansed, and they need a safe place to rebuild them. So there's no reinfection. And we reintroduce those safe systems back into the network on a measured approach, so that if something breaks out of that again, we know how to clean it up. And also, when you're finally at recovery and you've got the applications back up, you test that with the application team and the business user. And you also assess unrecoverable systems. If you knew what was on those systems, try and assess it, understand maybe if you had snapshots somewhere, even from 6 months ago, what sort of data was on it, what have you lost, how is that going to be impacted, the organization with insurance as well. That could be something you need to know about. Incident response. So the lessons learned is key part, that incident report. And I sometimes think it's the most important, because it's the opportunity to tell the organization how to repair itself and how to fix itself for a future event, so they don't have a reoccurrence. Reoccurrence because of an issue that you didn't resolve from a first incident is inexcusable. We've really got to learn from our incidents and make sure that we don't have a repeat of intrusion in the same way. Okay, so in an incident response, you might have the executive summary of the incident response. You have a diagram. A diagram might seem trivial, but it takes a long time to build, but it actually will clarify how you understand the incident. A lot of whiteboarding goes on with incidents, so you can understand traffic flows, different systems, how they got in, all that sort of stuff. So diagram's really important, and hopefully that shows the incident stages in it as well. A timeline of the incident is crucial to understand how things took time and how things can be improved and what the sequence was. And that will derive a fair bit of analysis and investigation as well. Then the short-term recommendations. Oh, sorry, the incident analysis is really important. Those incident factors that made a big difference to the incident should go into incident analysis. So how was it discovered? How did they get in? How do you know what the scope was? Those sorts of things are really important in their own right in the incident analysis. Short-term recommendations, what have we, and usually it will be all of the tactical stuff like resetting accounts, turning off or putting MFA on, things like that. Long-term recommendations might be more strategic, like you know, we're going to upgrade all our systems, or we're going to move to the cloud, or we're going to implement EDR across the environment, something like that. And then the appendix, which will have all of the evidence that you gathered and collected throughout the incident so that you can have a good understanding of it after the fact. We have this report because I said you don't really know the incident until you've written about it. And then you also are able to pass this around the organization so the organization learns about it, because this will become the most comprehensive record of what happened during the incident. And then if you've ever done this but gone back and read your old incident reports, it's really enlightening and will bring into focus some of the risks that you may have forgotten about or have been dropped down the priority list. And it's important to review those, I think, on an annual basis. So those incident response reports are golden. And then obviously additional monitoring and reset processes. So making sure you understand you know, which systems you need to monitor. You might be bringing in more logs, and then also understanding how to reset different accounts or different systems to make sure that you've got those processes all nicely honed. And then paying the ransom. So who decides if you pay the ransom? Well, I think this usually goes right up to the top, to the person who's got the strings and makes the decisions for the organization. So the CEO. When if there ever is double extortion? So we've seen single extortion with both the recent Optus and Medibank, because they didn't get their, you know, both of them didn't involve ransomware across an organization, but we've seen a lot of double extortion where they try and charge you for unlocking your machines, and also will say, we will expose all of the data if you don't pay the ransom. Make sure you have the conversation beforehand with your leadership team or your executive. You don't want to be arguing about it, but I will say this, you don't really know how your organization will react until you're in the moment. People's attitudes change very differently from a kind of a pious kind of, no, we'd never do that, to heck, let's do that, or else the organization's going to go under. So paying the ransom can be very different if you're in the hot seat. And then think about possibly cyber insurance. And there is some indication that attackers will target people with cyber insurance, because cyber insurance often comes with an indication of how much ransom you would pay if you're in that position. So that's something to think about. And then the big question is, what is it worth to the organization to get your systems back if they're all locked up, or to get the data back and to save reputation? But I think the double extortion is a bit of a misnomer. I agree with most people to say that if the data's out there, the bad guys aren't going to miss out on an opportunity to monetize twice. So it's important to remember that as well. Once it's out there, it is pretty much out there. All right, now the exam, just quickly, it's the CTF challenge. The instructions are in the forum post, the pinned forum post. So make sure you go have a look at that. I've seen some people already see it. It is a couple of VMs that you download. They're publicly available VMs, and the instructions that go through it. And thankfully, Microsoft had set up this CTF for me, which is nice. So there's a few questions in there, and a few flags already built in that you have to go find. You should work out the flags before sitting the exam. There's 5 of those flags. You should really copy and paste those flags into the exam, because you need the exact wording and exact characters for the flags. They are, and I hope it's really interesting and enlightening. And I said before, there's many different ways, or maybe I said it in the forum post, but there's many different ways to get to the flags through the challenge. So I'm really interested to know if people find new ways of doing it. Now the rules are, and I'll put the rules in the forum post, there's no sharing of flags. That just ruins it for everyone. So please don't put those flags in the forum or ask people for them privately. It just ruins the experience for you. It's a good process to go through to understand how to build virtual boxes and be able to interact between them and work out how to pull out certain information out of a box, because that's what this ransomware is all about. And the idea is that it's simulating an attack machine getting onto a network and getting credentials and sensitive information from that machine, so it can go on and find other machines to attack. Some of it's got to do with credentials, some of it's got to do with finding files with certain strings in them, and some of it's got to do with working out how to find security events as well. So it's a good range and well worth giving it a go. So I hope you enjoy that. Okay, that's interesting. I'll have a look at that. I think that, I'm not sure. Okay, I'll get onto that. And then there's 20 multiple choice after that. So that's just a standard to make sure you've paid attention through this session. Okay, and I think that's it. There's a few more questions, Jack.
Amazing work, thank you. So I'll just note to everybody that questions are now closed in the Q&A. We're a bit tight for time this evening, morning, etc. So any other questions, we're not able to actually close the Q&A, it seems, but we won't be taking any further.
No, I can take a couple, Jack,
yeah.
if that's all right. Yeah,
well,
yeah.
no, as in
no further after
ones.
this. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
so
good,
so Derek's asked, if you discovered excessive data exiting the network, wouldn't it be prudent to shut down the boundary router interface?
Yeah, it would be, and that could be one of the big red button kind of procedures, where you actually know who to talk to straight away and say, hey, it's leaving the organization. We don't know what it is. It looks like it's coming from a system that shouldn't be doing that. Close it. But you've got to be pretty certain that you are not crying wolf. So you've got to have some good evidence behind what you're saying, that you think that this is actually an attack. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So also, Nigel's asked if there's a website that lists breaches and provides a rundown on the attack methods. Now, I know there's Have I Been Pwned for personal websites. It seems that Nigel's asking, to provide real scenario reviews or damage, trying to get buy-in from my company for increased cybersecurity processes, but struggling for senior managerial support. So it seems like Nigel wants proof that this is particularly important, which, Nigel, I'm sorry that your bosses are not paying attention. They're wrong.
Yeah. I'm surprised lack of executive support, certainly in this climate and the pace of things at the moment. This sort of season, I think, will blow over a bit, but I still think that we need to pay attention. It has pretty serious impacts. I think the ransomware files are a great source, so that podcast, but I'll also post some of the places I go for write-ups about this sort of thing. There is a lot of technical detail about, how certain ransomware incidents occur, but also remember there's a lot of detail that is not published because organizations aren't comfortable in sharing how they failed. And that's just a natural kind of human response to something like this occurring. But I really think if anyone in this session or listening after has a situation where they are aware of a new technique or aware of, are trying to help other people, then I recommend trying to make the effort to share it with other people within the bounds of what your organization is allowed to do. I think about the ANU breach that happened a couple of years ago. The incident report from that is exceptional. If we could all do that, we need to work together to help each other out. So it's really important to get that information out there. So I will paste some of the areas in which I look. What is the really good ransom? Sentinel-1 has got a really good ransomware information. CrowdStrike does as well. They all write good, extensive reports on what's happening out there because that helps them with their product as well. But there's also some good, Sentinel-1 blog. Thanks, Luke. That's great. DFI reports is a good one as well. Terrific, Luke. That's wonderful. That's some of the ones I've been looking at. So, so have a look at those. They are really good resources.
Thanks very much, Jeremy. That sounds great. And last question. Sorry to people whose questions have been dismissed. Once again, exam-related questions can be directed to the forums or to Kit. We'll not be answering exam-related questions in the Q&A. But James has asked, working with Cloud AD recently, I hear that some objects still stay local. Is this correct, i.e. resources like shared mailboxes or meeting rooms?
Oh, can you say that again? I think quite.
So working with Cloud AD, and James has heard that some objects still stay local and wants to verify if that's correct, e.g. resources like shared mailboxes or meeting rooms.
Stay local, as in on premise?
I would assume so.
Yeah.
James, feel free to clarify.
Yeah. So there is obviously pure cloud environments.
James has clarified, yes, that is on premise.
Yeah, okay. So it depends. So I think it depends on your environment. I know that the shared mailboxes, if you're talking about Azure AD and Office 365, can be completely in the cloud through Office 365. But if you've got a on-premise like Exchange or other mail system, then maybe you need to bring those local to, there's dependencies. And it's not an easy thing to move from an on-premises Active Directory or identity provider, which Active Directory really is it, to something in the cloud, because there's file print, there's other interconnects between applications that we haven't even that are hard to flesh out, and those dependencies are still there. But essentially we want to move to an environment where you don't have those services that are so easy to break into. Active Directory, how it is, I think it's just going to become untenable to secure, certainly for a good size organization into the future. So you're trying to limit the use of those services, in your local environment. And I think that's probably the best I can do on that one, I think.
I think that's very well done. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. This is the end of our Q&A session. Just really quickly, for those of you still around, thank you once again, everyone, for attending these short courses. Are you able to take us back very slightly to the More IT Masters information page by any chance, Jeremy?
Oh, yes, I am there. Am I?
Yep, there we go.
Masters resources. Yep.
So thanks, everyone. Thank you very much to Jeremy for these last few weeks of this course, and big thanks also to Kit for doing the back end, and Shane for jumping in for me last week. If you are interested in more short courses that Jeremy has had something to do with, you can check out those that are on your screen currently, such as pen testing, incident response, CISSP, digital forensics, and CISM prep. Those short courses are roughly analogous or have material in them that is taken from some of the postgraduate subjects that Jeremy has contributed to or is the mentor for, such as ITE 533, Cybersecurity Management, which is aligned with the CISM exam kind of content, pen testing, ITE 535, and incident response, ITE 512. Those subjects are contained in postgraduate courses that ITM and CSU offer, such as the grad certs or masters in cybersecurity, the cybersecurity stream in the MBA or the graduate certificate in business administration computing, and potentially the graduate certificate or master in cloud computing and virtualization. If you're interested in studying further with IT Masters and Charles Sturt University, you can visit the website that is up on your screen, itmasters.edu.au/am I eligible. Alternatively, you can email eligibility at itmasters.edu.au, and myself or my esteemed colleague Anna will get in touch with you about the eligibility that you have for either entry into one of our postgraduate courses or course credit for getting a little bit further along in those postgraduate courses. So that would be fantastic. We always love it if people complete the short courses and then continue on to the full-length courses. Again, as an extra little incentive, if you complete and pass 3 of the short courses, that does count towards 1 subject credit towards any of our full-length postgraduate qualifications, which is always a delightful little sweetener. Thank you once again, Jeremy, for presenting, Kit for the logistics and the back end of facilitating. The exam will be posted around noon Australian Eastern Daylight Time tomorrow. You have infinite time to complete it, but you've got only 1 shot. Do not miss your chance to complete the short course exam. I'm so sorry for quoting Eminem just then, somewhat accidentally. Actually, I'm not sorry at all. I take that back. You're welcome. And you can find the previous recordings of the webinars, the additional readings, podcasts, links, course materials, etc., as well as the forums for discussion with your fellow participants, as well as Jeremy at learn.itmasters.edu.au. And once you have completed the exam as well, which is a 1-hour exam with 1 attempt, you will receive your certificate within approximately 1 week. Hopefully that's all of the housekeeping. The exam does not close. You can take the exam at any time. It will be open from tomorrow about midday Australian Eastern Daylight Time. The exam will never close. It's an infinite exam for your 1 attempt. Thank you once again very much to everyone who has participated in this short course. We hope to see you again in one of our other short courses or in our, heat death of the universe end date of the exam. Sure, let's go with that. I hope to see you again in a short course or a full-length course with us as well. My name's Jack. Maybe I'll speak to some of you about eligibility in the future. And for now, thank you and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night to everybody. Goodbye.